What's up, friends and strangers on the internet? My name is John, and I've got these questions here about drinking and about not drinking for the last 2 years, and I'm going to answer them. They're questions I wrote for myself to answer. That's kind of sad, I know. But anyway, like I was saying, my name is John, and I'm a fake alcoholic. I lie about my addiction. I didn't really have a problem. I overhype it, so that way I get attention, because I didn't get enough attention growing up. I certainly got some, but not enough for me, the little narcissist psychopath in the making. I wanted more attention, and I'm also kind of lazy, so I don't want to go out and do hard things and do cool things and get accolades for my real accomplishments. I'd rather victimize myself and sit there and go, woe is me, and then have people come up and say, oh my gosh, it'll be okay. And then maybe I'll get some of those hugs that I always desperately wanted. Maybe I'm kidding. I don't know. Maybe I'm like actually identifying a part of my ego that I'm too afraid to admit is real, but I'm pretty sure I like to do cool things, and I'm pretty sure I think that vulnerability is awesome, and that's at least what I tell myself I'm doing here. And look, this weird little rant, it's coming from a comment I got 2 months ago on this channel that I am petty enough that I'm still holding on to it. And I did make a video last week where I talked about the comment, and really, I guess the point of me talking about it in that video was that you should just listen to people if they say they have a problem. And if you yourself feel like you have a problem, it's not up for other people to tell you whether your feelings are legitimate or not. Like, you know, with what's the analogy? It's like they say if you're drowning in a bucket or drowning in a pool, you're drowning. You know, it's something to look into. And if you think you have a problem, that's between you and your maker or whatever. Like that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if you're a real drinker or a real druggie or whatever. Like, that's a trap. That honestly kept me inside of this perpetual cycle of like self-sabotage and overconsumption of alcohol and narcotics and pornography and just like overindulging in self-hatred. It kept me in that cycle for a long time, because I was always like, one, who are you? Do you think you deserve it to be better? Do you think you deserve for life to be easy? Oh, your problems are bad. What about all the other problems? Blah, blah, blah. Or it's not that bad. I'm not really an alcoholic. Look at how that person's drinking. They're a real alcoholic. That is a zero-sum game. But nonetheless, let's get into these questions and answers. Why should you listen to these questions? I quit drinking over 2 years ago on January 1st, 2021. And before I get into these, I just also want you to know that I'm very well aware. The one, you know me and you like my stuff, and that's why you're watching. Or if you're new to this channel, you probably started watching like self-help videos, Tony Robbins, Jordan Peterson or something, maybe months ago. And now you're into the dark abysses, the dark corners, the deepest parts of the algorithm, just some random guy sitting at his kitchen table talking about his feels. It's all good. You can overindulge, in my opinion, in self-help. But what I think you're doing, and what I did for a while, was I started to cultivate a healthy media diet of podcasts, audiobooks, videos like this of people talking to me about how their life was fucked and how they unfucked it. So these cosmic vibrations coming at you into the camera right now is just some seeds I'm throwing, which is disgusting if you have a dirty mind thinking about me spreading my seed everywhere. But I'm just shooting out my seeds, telling you things I've learned, telling you my hardships and my troubles, being vulnerable. So that way those seeds can get planted into your garden of self-development, self-discovery, self-love, right? We're going to sprout some goodness, some good decisions. This is a tool also. You can put it in your tool belt. Also, side note, I swear to you, I'm getting into these questions right now, but it might get very bright in here like it is right now, because I'm filming next to a window in the middle of the day before my kids get home, before my meetings. I think putting these videos out are very important. So, you know, just deal with this angelic ambience, the blown out highlights, all right. God, this is ridiculous. First question. How much did I drink before I quit? Well, I actually didn't drink any alcohol or do any drugs until after high school. I was a straight edge punk kid. And then I stopped becoming that. And then I went full tilt, full LSD merchant, consumer. I don't want to say distributor. That's incriminating. And that's also not true. But I got fully immersed into the world of drugs and the subculture, really into like reading about the beatniks, really into reading like Thomas Wolfe, Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test, and all of this stuff. But as I got immersed inside of that culture, I kind of didn't like alcohol. I thought it was the dumbest drug. And I was aware of the hypocrisy of it being a drug and marijuana being a felony. It's fucking stupid. But I met a lady, and she was really into alcohol. And I remember the first morning after we hung out overnight, I went to go get a 6-pack of Budweiser with her for breakfast. And that was kind of the beginning of me being an alcoholic. And anytime there was a reason to drink, I drank. When there wasn't a reason to drink, I made up one. I'm sitting alone. I know some people say you shouldn't drink alone, but I've read Bukowski, and I'm going to romanticize this. So I drank alone. I drank often. At my peak of consumption, I don't know how much I was drinking. I don't think it was ever fifths of alcohol. Have I drank almost an entire fifth of whiskey or other alcohol on my own? Oh yeah, several occasions. And there were periods where maybe I would go and get whiskey and Coke and a frozen pizza. It's so gross. After doing like a show. And I would drink. I would say I was writing, but really I was just watching videos of people performing the medium I was in, or watching poker videos, or internet gambling before it was illegal, and then losing money. But I would have that fifth of whiskey, and I would wake up and it'd mostly be gone. Like if I wanted to drink the next night, I'm like, I could kind of have a drink with that, and that's disgusting. Then I was given custody of my son, and after my son was born, honestly, I started to really I never drank and drove anymore. I never drank and drove him. Maybe a beer, maybe 2 beers if I was somewhere for more than 2 hours. I never drank more than two drinks if I was somewhere for 3 hours or more and drove my family around. So that was another thing where I was like, well, I've got to figure it out. I'm responsible. I'm only blacking out at home when the kids are asleep. I didn't want my kids to see me drinking. And then towards the end of drinking, they saw me drink some. But on average, towards the end of my drinking career, I was drinking maybe 2 nights a week. And it would be an overindulgence. If we went out, my partner and I would be the sober driver and have the drink, maybe have the chew. And then she would come home, I would come home, and I wouldn't want to play catch up. I would be like thinking, man, I really want to get my buzz on. And I'd go over to my little corner I can see right now, and I would make myself a drink. I'd drink most of the beer, open up another beer, take a few pulls off a bottle. And I did that for like 3 trips when I got home. So that way I could get my buzz to the proper level. And then I would go to sleep and just get progressively more messed up as my body was processing alcohol. And that had no rhyme or reason. Really, I guess there was a rhyme or reason. I would notice that. I would quit drinking for 30 days, or I would try to quit, and then I would stop, relapse, whatever, fail the experiment. And then I'd go back to drinking. I would drink a beer or 2, and then I would maybe do that a couple times, and I would just progressively drink more, and then I would stop, and that was the cycle. So that's how much I drank before I decided to quit drinking for 30 days. Then I went back for 2 days. And then on New Year's Day, January 1st, 2021, I decided to give up booze for a year. Now we're here making this video. The different methods I used to quit. Like, what methods did I use to quit? Not AA. I'm a proud atheist, agnostic, whatever. Let's talk about it. It's a very nuanced opinion. It's a very nuanced philosophy and ideology that I have surrounding the Holy Spirit, Big Daddy, Baby Jesus. But mostly I just say I'm an atheist because it gets me out of a lot of conversations or starts a lot of arguments. Or just a lot of times I go, yeah, that sounds good. What church did you go to? I'm thinking about going. Tell me about it. So no AA because I live in the Midwest. And while it's not ubiquitous, it happens enough that people say you need to find your one true higher calling, your higher purpose, your higher power. And it is white baby Jesus. Surrender to him. So no AA. But I watched a lot of videos. I luckily didn't drink enough where I had to go to a treatment facility. And then really just like complete abstinence. I tried moderation. At one point, I tried doing this thing for 4 weeks where I did 4 drinks a night. And then the next week, 3, following 2, last week 1. The girl I was with at the time did not like this approach. She got real mad and like was like, "You're writing down that you're drinking." And then she like erased all the stuff off the whiteboard, and there's a big fight. And then we broke up. But that was the method I used. And looking back, of course, I had a problem. But I was trying to figure it out. So really, like, the method I used was vulnerability, honesty, curiosity, and repeated experimentation. What does it feel like to not drink for 30 days? What does it feel like to not drink for the weekend? And oh boy, this could be a whole other conversation about like the anxiety I felt sometimes when I would consider not drinking. And I'm like, what if, I think this is so stupid and desperate and gross, but I think at times I thought, what if something happens and then I'm never able to drink again tomorrow? Like, what if that option gets taken away from me and then I missed my chance to have my last night of drinking? So gross. But repeated experimentation and then learning about how alcohol affects the brain and getting to a point where I kept practicing being honest with myself. Those were the methods that I used to quit. Oh, and currently I'm doing like year by year. Every year at the beginning of the year, I go, I'm not going to drink for another year. I do have a lot of anxiety around like the end of the year thinking, am I going to re-up? But really, I guess this year it wasn't too bad. All right, next question. Pink clouding and the Jesus light. Pink clouding and social pressure. You can't see this because there's so much light in here. All right. So, did I experience pink clouding? And did I experience social pressure? Oh yeah, I experienced pink clouding, but it did make the social pressure easier. When I first went out and I wasn't going to drink for a year, I was excited to tell everybody. Back to the beginning of the video where I just want attention and hugs from my mommy. Please be my mommy. So I was like very excited. And if you're not familiar with pink clouding is what happens when people quit a substance or they change or break their bad habits, and they're just elated and full of joy. Just to be telling the truth for the first time after 10 years. Just to be sober for the first time in 5 years. Just start working out. And everything's great. You're in what you would call a pink cloud floating around in the heavens. So I experienced that, and that helped me get through social pressure. If you're experiencing social pressure, quitting drinking, you might need to separate yourself from your friends, and that's fine. You also should be aware of something called identity shift effect, which loosely, identity shift effect is this thing that occurs which causes people, in the context of drinking, it causes them to relapse. And what happens to people a lot in the beginning of drinking, in the beginning of not drinking, they don't feel assured and confident in their new persona as a non-drinker. So like they'll go out to an event, they'll go to a bar or to a baseball game or wherever people are drinking. They'll be going to, a funeral. And they show up uncertain about their new identity as a sober person or non-drinker. You get there and you're like, I got this. I'm going to get through it. Maybe even you're playing the tape forward, which is a tactic that they teach you in AA or they teach you online about like thinking what it will be like to get through the thing, and you get through it and you're sober and you've won. It's a tactic that I implement all the time. If I give in and I drink here, I will hate myself hours from now. I will be hungover. Maybe I'll do something stupid. But if I can get through this and I get through to the other side sober, the thrill of victory will be great. So maybe you're playing the tape forward, but you're still uncertain about your new identity as a non-drinker. You show up, you see everyone that you used to drink with, and they're all drinking. And we are social creatures. We're biologically programmed to not be excluded from the group. So you start to feel scared. You feel real scared. And then Jim Bob Jenkins, your old drinking pal from 1972, tried and true, used to beat you up and call you gay on the playground when he put his fingers in your butt. But you guys have been through it all. Jim Bob Jenkins says, you want a brewski, bro? And that stupid monkey brain of yours that's biologically wired to not be excluded from the group goes, yeah, I'll have one Jim Bob Jenkins. And you give in. And your identity that you've wanted to construct and create as a non-drinker, it's compromised. So then you have to negotiate with yourself. You're like, well, that's who I wanted to be. That's who I was trying to be. I'm no longer that. Shit. And you don't want to feel bad. So you convince yourself that the identity that you were trying to assume or the identity that you were trying to come into, it's no longer an option because now you're a drinker again. And this feels bad. So you convince yourself as a coping mechanism, you convince yourself that you were just trying to fit in and that you really didn't even want to be a non-drinker. And that is called identity shift effect. Be aware of that. And if you can't avoid it, don't go out and be around those people until you get out of the pink cloud, okay? Because the pink cloud will come and it will go. And after the pink cloud, it's just sobriety and it's boring and your brain's all gobbly gloop. Might be more globbity gloopity depending on your consumption of booze and drugs. And you got to work through the gloppity gloop. You have to especially dude, I was a craft beer guy. I was a bartender. I was a comedian that ran underground shows. Everything I did revolved around alcohol. Everything in my life had to change. So if you resonate with that at all, you're going to have to spend a lot of time rebuilding your life, and everything's going to have to slowly start to look different over time. Be aware of the social pressure. Be aware of the pink cloud because it might be easy to say no at first because of pink clouding, but eventually it will get harder. And then it gets easier on the other side of that circle of life. Resentment, romance, and playing the tape forward. I just talked about playing the tape forward, but let's just nail that down again. Not going to make a Jesus joke. Playing the tape forward. Visualize yourself getting to the other side of whatever the thing is, and you're there and you're sober. And then reverse engineer. Use that method. I use it all the time. Now that you got a name for it, you'll probably be able to use it better. Romance, resentment. Man, I guess I should form this. I should structure this like a question. Do I have resentment? Yes, I have resentment for the people in my life. My partner, my beautiful partner, Alexis, forever fiance. We've been engaged for 4+ years. I resent the shit out of her for being able to have a drink or two and occasionally get turned up, but she doesn't seem to have a problem with it. Her wiring is different. And when she tells me about how she grew up, man, the earlier you drink, the more likely you are to become an alcoholic or an addict. And man, she was going hard. I was a little straight edge kid and she's going to raves. But she didn't get bit with the addict gene. Her brain waves are fine. And man, I resent the shit out of her, but I have to be honest about that. If you have a burden, all right, and you're carrying it by yourself and it's very heavy, but then you share it with someone else, it makes the burden, it makes the load lighter. So I tell her all the time, I'm like, I fucking resent you, but I love you. But that's not what romance is about. Romance is about the romantification, if that's a word, of drinking. Especially now that I'm so far removed from drinking and cravings and stuff, I would be like, why can't you just have a drink or two? And that's the hardest part, but just being honest about how bad it actually was. Even though I was faking it, but it was pretty bad. So whenever I start to romanticize alcohol, I'm like, John, are you just avoiding being honest about how it was and how I think I was a fine dad. I would have been nicer and more patient and less fat and more fit if I would have quit drinking sooner. But mostly I just went to work. I took my kid to the park, baseball games or whatever. And then he'd go to sleep and I'd start drinking. And there's nothing to romanticize there. It's fucking sad. Last question. Do I still get cravings even after 2 years? This ties into the romance. The cravings are different. I used to get cravings in the beginning that were so bad, the voices were so loud that I would give in just to shut them up. But now the cravings, they're still there. Funny enough, I was watching a Wheezy Waiter video. I think it's his main channel. I like to go to YouTubers' channels and hit oldest. And I like going through. I've been trying to go through the Wheezy Waiter back catalog like a freaking weirdo. But there was, if you know Wheezy Waiter, you'll know. But I'll explain this in a way where it will make sense even if you're not a Wheezy Waiter fan. This creator, Wheezy Waiter, years ago had an older office, had a whiteboard on it, and the whiteboard had like his goals, like things he was doing to make his life better. And one of the bigger ones, like the center of the board where the attention mostly goes, was drink less. It said drink less, and it had a square, and then it had the number of drinks he had the night before. And a lot of the times it said 2, or if it said 2, he'd be like, yeah. And I was watching this video a couple days ago, and it reminded me so much of my whiteboarding experience. And I thought, oh, this guy, this creator you like, quit drinking for a year, went back to drinking. I don't know what his current relationship is. And also it's a parasocial thing. Like, I'm not his friend. But I'm like, I started telling myself, like, it seems like he's got it figured out. Maybe you weren't an alcoholic. Maybe your ex-girlfriend was wrong for getting mad at you, John, for trying to figure your stuff out. And if she just understood you better, you could have drank less and you could still, maybe I can go back. And I started just like thinking about what I would drink, how tasty it would be. And I caught myself romanticizing booze. And I didn't drink, haven't drank in over 2 years. But those are the cravings down. And that might sound really bad if you haven't quit drinking yet. But I don't know. It was like, remember my grandpa being all like sad that Bill's no longer here. Or if I remember like a good moment I had with a friend. And then I remember how they were kind of an asshole. Or I was an asshole and that's why we're no longer friends or whatever. That's like how the cravings manifest now, 2 years in. But, man, rest in peace, old friend. This is long. And speaking of long, if you've made it to this part of the video, drop an eggplant emoji in the comments. You know, it's between you and I and whoever else sees this. I love your face. And I'll see you again soon. Bye.